Profesor de la Universidad de Kassel. Quería que igual un poco nos han trazado muchos aplicaciones, muchos sistemas de política social, de la sociedad, pero más que eso, por ir cada vez incorporando enfoques teóricos nuevos a la sociedad, en este caso es
Me encanta mucho estar invitado para decir perdón, me han dicho que venido aquí para el problema es que mi español no es bastante suficiente para hablar, para presentar un argumento complicado. Entonces, convenido de que yo hablo en inglés, pero es posible preguntar de disputar en español. Por favor, si disputan en español, debe ser más fácil. La voz alta. Vamos a ver. Hay algunas diapositivas en español también. Vista, sí, utilizar a todos seguir. Incluso varios días que no practicar inglés como español, pero voy a hablar lentamente sobre inglés también. No con estos conocimientos. Entonces, in inglés, as I said, there are some slides in English, some slides in Spanish. Of course, there will be some mistakes in Spanish, maybe also in English, I don't know. But I hope you get the point. I have to add to the presentation of Boge that I'm working, yes, on social security questions, but my approach is very much centered on the organizational side, administrative, organizational, governance, governmental side. So I'm not only and not, maybe not first instance, looking at programs of social policy, so what money is being paid or who gets what. You have to know that when you are working on it, but it's not the study, my studies on the organization side. And I've done studies on several fields, almost in any case it was like this. I had this field and I was asking myself how it's being organized, and today the question is how it's being reorganized, because we have so many, in many countries of the world, so many new approaches to the organization of welfare, health, but also public services, that I think social sciences and I'm a social scientist should also contribute to the understanding of what's going on. More recently, I have done this for the field of hospital care. But I think that most of what I'm implying, what I will be saying here, you can apply to other fields as well. Of course, the medical part of it is a bit special, but I think if you look at other public service issues or fields, similar things are happening, similar problems are occurring, similar questions have to be posed. As I am interested in organizations, Of course, and as all social scientists have to work with theory, I have to look what is interesting in terms of theory, to understand the sectors as such, but also developments in these sectors. And as so many others of us, I stumbled across the neo-institutionalist framework, which is, as you may know, I don't know whether you have ideas about it, but I guess you have, which is very large and also very evolving. It has started, I don't know, 40 years ago, and in theory it has started earlier because institutions are a core concept of sociology for ages. But it has started then in the 40s, 70s with very seminal articles, you may know, Maya Roman, for instance, or Scott, William Scott, W. Scott, and others, the macro American, US American scholars. And then, of course, it has developed further, and more scholars, including from Europe, have embarked on the study of public organizations or non-profit organizations, but also other for-profit organizations from the perspective of neo-institutionalism from history. I will go into this not too deep, but you will find it in my presentation. So the idea is, can we make sense of problems occurring in a hospital sector, or in a broader sense in the public sector, when applying the framework of neo-institutionalism's current problems. So minus on problems in hospitals, and you may understand what I mean in a minute. Page down, see. Where? This one. This is my first slide in Spanish, so please apologize my bad Spanish. So what I will do today is I will just introduce, and I've already started to do that, the overall theme of the talk, and then it's about, you could say, a detail or a sub-concept in the overall public sector or neo-institutionalism network framework, which is about accountability. I will go into this in public sphere, and I have a couple of slides on this because it's not only on accountability, it's also on institutionalism as such. You will see that, so I'm just trying to approach the different perspectives, but then have something like a framework. And then I will talk about my country. I'm from Germany, which is a big country, I think. It has, I think, less of inhabitants than Mexico, but interesting enough, it's almost the same size. And I think there is not too much comparative work so far on the two. Of course, these are very different societies, but this is the interest of comparison. I've worked much on comparisons with France, but most people found it boring, especially people from the US and from the north and the south. As I said, France and Germany, this is a couple in love, or sometimes like a couple that's not always in love. So sometimes they're fighting. Yeah, but they well, I found these are similar cases where you can learn much if you compare similar cases, but you can also learn much if you compare dissimilar cases, and Mexico and Germany are dissimilar. But Mexico is, I think, a country where you can still see modern society in it, and this is a precondition for comparing, I think, in sociology. You would say that you wouldn't see much sense in comparing like Papua New Guinea or something, I don't know in Spanish what's Papua New Guinea, so all these Pacific islands and let's say Germany, but Mexico is moderate, but not a completely modern society, but it's worth being considered more broadly. So this is the starting point, I have really to say, the starting point of, and that's my fourth element in this talk, the starting point of looking at Mexico, but I have only read a couple of articles and had some discussions with expert here on the table, so my own knowledge about Mexico is close to zero. But I've read some articles and I have some ideas about what we could maybe do in terms of comparison in the future. Looking at some things which from very far were striking me when looking at Mexico as a church. And this is the fourth part of the talk, and I have some conclusions at the end. So can you follow? I'm talking too slowly for you. Or you want me to speak faster, or is that okay? Are you okay with this? So it's okay. So this is about one element in more recent, I think, element. It's more an implicit element from my point of view, not an explicit, but an implicit, or very often an implicit element of neo-institutionalism is about the relation between society and organizations. Of course, organizations in the public sphere, the public sector, more than organizations in the private sphere, but even economic organizations, so enterprises, usual and for-profit enterprises, have their relation to the public sphere. And if you talk about institutions, you talk about the relation between institutions like law, but also like customs, like contracts, but also unwritten laws. These are institutions on the one hand, and organizations in the public sector on the other hand. If you do it, it's much about accountability. Accountability, cuentas, is correct? In the sense that these are organizations which are expected more closely to respond to expectations in the wider society. Of course, any organization has to respond. If you go to McDonald's, also you have McDonald's will have to respond to some expectations. If they sell poisoned meat, what they do, by the way, but you only notice after 10 years. But if they sell meat, of course, they can't do that. There is an expectation that they would not only sell unpoisoned meat, but they will also sell, this is more recent, you can now have salad in McDonald's. When I was young, they didn't even know what is salad there. So they know what is a salad. So this is a response to society. So even McDonald's has a response. But of course, we are in the public sector of studies, we have much stronger and more detailed expectations on what organizations working for the public sector, not necessarily in, but for the public sector, would have to deliver, would have to do. And so we have this accountability thing there. What I found striking, however, is that now that we know that, yes, there is a complex accountability thing there, we have developments in various public sectors where the logic by which the institutions are linked to the organizations can be like contradictory. I've talked too much Spanish. Can be in contradiction, exactly. And that we have now, this is not my idea, but this has been now, of course, written for a couple of years now, and a lot of articles inspired by the neo-institutionalist framework. We have not only one logic there in the relation between an organization and its environment, we have several logics, and of course we have now some logics which are in contradiction with each other, and which are also conducive to hybrid organizational structures. So that's very abstract, I know. I will be more concrete in a minute. And the case of hospitals is clear enough to make the point, I think. And my idea, and I don't know whether it's my idea, but at least I didn't find it so far in the literature, is that we could link all this, which you can find about accountability in the literature, to the questions of competing logics. Those are concepts which are all there in the literature, the US American mainly, but also, more recently,
in the public administration literature. And then look at what's the relation. I think the relation is quite simple because the practice of rendering account is the mode, the organizational mode of how the interface between society and organization works. So that's a practice of people giving rendering account is a practice, and this is well, linking my organization to the societal environment. And then you can say that this is, in a sense, a translator. It's translating the institutional logics into practice. So actors in a hospital or in a public sector, municipality, for instance, would have to translate the link between them and the institution, and they would do that by rendering accounts. It's a simple thought, but it's not so clear because these bodies of theory are separated so far. So accountability theory is separated from institutions more. So my idea was to make two epistemic communities meet: organization studies, public administration, or you can say more precisely the neo-institutionalist framework on one hand, and this accountability framework in public administration theory on the other. Interesting. Which is the central point or the central suggestion is that we have now two logics at two levels in modern public sectors in Europe, and I guess it's coming to be an issue as well in Mexico, but it's not that clear to me so far. But we have in the Western world the two logics at two levels. The two logics are will be depicted more precisely in a minute. Well, I have to name them now. The one logic is the old logic, which is, yes, we have to serve the public sphere, we have to serve people on the basis of public norms. We have to treat patients, we have to clean the streets, we have to provide services as a public sector agency. But there's a second logic you are familiar with, pervading all the public sectors now, which is, to put it very bluntly, we have to make money. We have to have a sound balance sheet. We have to be cost efficient. And these two logics are very, well, I think they are very salient. There may also be other logics, and I would argue that many of those other logics which are around in the literature you could subsume to the two, but this is of course debate. But the other point is not only you have two logics, you have also two levels where these logics play out. And this is the point I don't find in the literature, because, well, because maybe the literature is so much written by Anglo-Saxon people. Anglo-Saxon people have a certain idea of the state, which continental European people don't have. This is the monolithic state. The state is small, it's not very big and strong, but it's there. If it's there, it's strong, and it's a monolithic state. It's just a state, and then there are, of course, layers, like federal state and national, federal, and maybe local, but there's no, nothing like a composite state as we have this in continental Europe. In continental Europe, you know, the state, you can see the state as something being composite, yeah. And can see that there are many instances and many actors, collective actors, well, associations, trade unions, agencies, I don't know what. But the agencies have now come to the Anglo-Saxon world. But this is more recent. The tradition is state nothing else. Germany, for instance, is a corporate state where you have so many agencies and negotiations at several levels that you don't see the state anymore. I'm a bit strong here, but this is very much now. This has been discovered more recently by the Anglo-Saxon literature. You can now find all this about networks, and for them it's a discovery, something very new. There are no networks. As a European, especially as a German, this idea is not very spectacular because our society, at least in the 20th century, is a very political, is an ethos. And even France, which is a strong state concept as well, in reality, from my point of view, has a lot of these bodies and power nodes, you can say, which are, well, they are strongly related to state, but they are, after all, independent as well to some extent. At least in some fields which I have studied. The same holds for the Netherlands, for Austria, all these countries. A bit different is the North, where you have done your studies. Of course, they also have a strong state, but they have also a strong civil society, where organizations have formed, which are very political, and they do not provide anything, but they are very strong stakeholders. And I would say also this is different from the Anglo-Saxon universe, where we may of course have the lobby groups, but they are not an internal part of the state, or not conceived of being internal parts. Well, I'm not a state theorist after all, but my feeling is, if you talk about accountability and about institutional logics, don't look just at the level of one organization and then the state or society, but look at intermediary levels as well. Because many things are happening there. That's, well, two logics, two levels. Very simple. And of course, I'm very much inspired by my field, or the field I'm now working on, which is hospitals, because in Germany, but also in many other countries, you have these two levels, or more than one level. You have also more types of providers, etc., including in countries which seem to suggest or seem to insinuate that there is a strong state-led, like France is again a good example. The ideology of the French is that they have a strong public hospital sector. The reality is that they have a private sector for ages. And this poses a big problem now, as far as I know, in France, because they have to reform. The question was how to design those systems. But you know better than me. We have a French colleague studying that. That's why I mentioned French. Well, so my question is the last one here. If there are two logics and two levels, and if these two logics, as I will explain in a minute, are not in harmony with each other, there will be tensions. And as a social scientist, I'm interested in how tensions are managed, or how actors are coping with tensions. And of course, it's very complicated. If you have more than one level, you have to look at more than one level. And I'm afraid that that's the point where, as you may be not familiar with German sectors, public sector, also the sector social, will be a bit complicated to delineate in what follows the situation in Germany. But perhaps you get just the idea, and then it could be a starting point for a discussion, including on Mexico. Because, as you will see, my feeling about Mexico is, yes, you also have so many levels of accountability. And these are, like in Germany, not only state levels, but there's also other organizations like the social security organization for the middle classes, the ESSMA, the ESSI, well, I always forget these acronyms, but you know what I mean, social security for the private and public sector employees. So Mexico as well has some of these multi-level things, so maybe the multi-level analysis could be helpful for Mexico too. Well, I hope you have not been too often at a hospital so far as a person, but if you have been there, you know all this, what I'm telling you now. But we have, just before starting, to share a common idea of what is a hospital. I mean, we have an idea about what is a hospital, but maybe I should remind some basics. Well, first of all, a hospital is a very strong organization in modern society because it's dealing with the existence of human beings. I mean, it's a very basic thing, and it has it's one of the most rigid organizations also we have in society. It's like well, it's more than a factory. It's like sometimes you know these words maybe by Goffman, who said this is an asylum that's like a prison for people. And of course, I'm not working on the economic side or something, but probably hospitals need any rate, they have these rigid structures, and they include the whole person for a while. This while has become shorter internationally, but there's still very important part, or very important, now I know French term, prise.
Prise en charge?
No, not prise de la personne. Well, it's really grabbing, you can say grabbing the whole person. And this is very important because this also is it's about the human being being treated there, the whole human being. And the second point I want to make is some of these things are like secular, are not being in any case being called into question, even by all these new movements, all these new reforms. And these are characteristics that persist in current societies and in those societies which are still about to develop their hospital sectors that would also have these these standards or these general expectations, which is, for instance, that society as a whole and the state and the public sector should remain strong in the field, should remain a strong player, should have control. This is something which is not as such being called into question. It's very modern and it's not being abandoned so far. And another thing is not being abandoned after all, that we have a strong group within hospitals. And these are doctors. This is a medical profession. And this is one of the strongest social groups in society, I think, almost in all countries. I only wonder how it's in Northern Korea. But in many, many countries, whatever institutional setup, it's a strong group. And what is new is not that professions are becoming so weak, which is sometimes said in literature, that the state is abandoning health. I don't think so. It doesn't, for various reasons. And Mexico, I think that's a country where the state is doing the contrary. It's investing in health. Under neo-conservative governments, as I learned, you have done the strongest steps towards a more inclusive health sector. So it's something like a modern, it's a dynamic of modernization which is not dependent on political allegiances. But what is new in the sector, like in other parts of the public sector in Europe and the US, Canada, etc., is that now people think, well, we want to keep control of it, but we will do it by introducing markets. So we have a paradoxical situation where usually the market economy is something where the states and the elites, and especially economic elites, I would say, especially those who are in these buildings over there, they would say, well, no, the state shouldn't too much interfere. A little bit, yes, but then it's our own universe. This would be the usual market economy, and the state would argue differently. But now the state has had the idea to introduce marketplace, but without abandoning its overall responsibility. And if this is the case, you have a new setup for accountability relations. Because on one hand, the state remains a strong part and the representative of society in a sense, and the organizations have to render account to these. But on the other hand, there are instruments from the market economy put into the health sector, and there is a tendency of saying, well, let do them their job as they want to do. They will do a good job and we will control that later on or something. And this gives a new accountability situation and, tensions, as I said. I didn't want to do this. This is strange thing. And of course, you can have this also in other sectors. In the public sector in Europe, we would have that in other fields as well. This is, I will skip that because it's just it's rephrased in other terms. You have capitalistic values in the sector, you have commercial logic in some of these organizations, and you have, of course, some new, I would say, some new relations between professions within the sectors of medical professions, which may be challenged by other professions like accountants, like business managers coming into as a crazy profession. So this is something happening everywhere, I think, in the Western world. But it's still the same story. We have the two logics, and we have two accountability configurations which do not live in harmony with each other. And so that's another way of putting it. We have at the same time the marketing, but these elements do persist, as I said. So public values around public sector provision do persist in many respects, and also the culture of the professions, of those who steer, who govern the organizations, and also the intermediate organizations, the intermediary, as I said, commissions and agencies, etc. These would be still led by the culture, the professional culture, centering, well, or centering, I don't know, but still very much influenced by medical ideas. And the medical ideas, I mean, you're really aware of it. The idea of medicine is that there is a science, there is a body, there is a problem, we will use the science and use the problem. And we will only do what is susceptible to use the problem. This is, you can say, an ideology of doctors, but in the sense it's a culture. And if you mix this up with the welfare state, you would have a situation where it's not only medical things which should be in the forefront of what doctors do, but also everyone, every citizen, because it's part of society. As a human being has human rights, getting the medicine he or she needs. So this is a culture, I think it's like a welfare professional culture which has developed in Germany and in many other countries during the 20th century. It's not only the medical profession but also the welfarism, the welfare idea. And together, that gives you the hospital as it is at the end of the 20th century, I think including in Mexico. But the problem in Mexico is that you have not one world, not one culture, universe, but you have these several worlds in which people live and live the hospital thing, which I wanted to say, which doesn't exclude that in all of these three worlds the culture is there. But probably it's not the same level maybe of provision and not the same accuracy of provision, etc. But I will come to this, to my very first impression of Mexico at the end. So this is some elements of what's happening to hospitals worldwide. They are changing a lot, and I just wanted to raise your attention for some reasons why they are changing. First of all, they seem to change because many fields of public sector provision have been or were expected to change according to new governance programs, especially around Nueva Política. And this is one thing which is of what's driving change in hospitals. But beyond, and of course we have to look beyond. We have of course also logic where, and this is very consistent with some theories on neo-institutionalism, where you see that an organizational field develops because some actors are becoming strong and disseminate some ideas in it and redefine the logic of the sector. And this is happening when, for instance, business is becoming interested in hospitals. And this has been the case internationally. Business has become interested in hospitals, and not only hospitals for the very rich, but they have always been there. It was private owners, but now more and more, even in Germany, as you can see, the hospitals for everyone. So private sector is interested in hospitals. There's also some pressure on doctors, on medical professionals, coming from academics and all these people say that these are, in German we say, gods in white clothes. If you're I'm sure that's not existing as a proverb in Spanish or even not in French, so, but you can understand what I mean, that the medical profession is being challenged for different reasons. I don't know where you go, but more and more middle-class people don't go to the doctor. They go to some of these voodoo people from Africa and etc. You mean what I mean? They're not trusting the school medicine, the official medicine. This is one thing. Also, medical progress is very important in some respects. I won't go into this. But also social and cultural expectations outside the hospital. There's some growing. There's more. Sorry, I didn't want to send you out to. That's what the risk. I took the risk that someone. I can't do anything. I will try. So there are new expectations also from society to hospitals. We have to keep this in mind, but I will not go into this further. But we have to keep in mind that the pressure on hospitals is not coming from one single source. I will concentrate very much on the first one, which may also be connected to the other ones. But this is a project, research project on its own. But just keep it in mind. Are you all familiar with this? Yes, so I don't need to go into this. Everyone here knows what it is. Well, I think one point I wanted to make is this is something, and as a German, I should make a point. It's not confined to the mere public sector. It can also be applied to organizations which work on behalf of the public sector. In many Western welfare states, public services are being provided by non-profit organizations on behalf of the state. That makes a difference to countries that do not have this tradition, but new public management is impacting not only on the public sector, but it's in the same way it's challenging the public sector, also challenging non-profit organizations. And as we have hospital systems in which hospital care is being delivered by non-public organizations, we have also to include the non-profit sector in our studies. But this is a minor point. The tensions which I'm talking about are, I think, quite clear, and there's work, I think very good work by Canadian colleagues having shown these tensions. It's very simple from my point of view. Hospital in countries, I don't know, many Western countries now. Well, I couldn't name them up all here, but well, Canada seems to be one, UK seems to be one. Well, now more recently, Denmark, Sweden are being presented as going to this direction, but also Netherlands is strong here, and Germany. I don't know about France. France, you can see those suggestions. Some say yes, some say no. But I think in many countries we have two logics which are now, you could say, public expectations which are run in parallel. And one is saying that we have to provide services universally to everyone in need at any time. And the second is we have to be cost efficient, we have to be competitive because there's now other hospitals there we have to compete with, more or less, more directly, less directly. And so we have now, and you can see this in all these, or in the handbook, if you look at the international handbook, I mean the US is a forerunner, of course, as usual, has been a forerunner of this. In the handbooks on organized healthcare organizations from the US, this is for 20 years to see, yes, these are economic organizations, these are enterprises, yes, they have to earn revenue, yes, they have to make money. So we are now in a state where hospitals have to do both at the same time, which is a bit funny because there are so few organizations that have to do both at the same time. Serving all people and making money. Go to McDonald's and ask them whether they would like to do that. That would mean the end of hunger in the world. Well, I'm not sure by which mechanism. Okay, I come to the theoretical challenge, or yes, theoretical challenges. Okay. I found this in a dictionary, Spanish, German. Is that correct? ¿Se puede entender las dos idiomas? Yeah. Yeah, same as more than one Mars tab would be correct. This is something which now has to be tackled by research. It's possible to do both. Make money and serve all people. I mean, it's very simple, very simple, but it's possible. And how is possible? And one window through which you can see what people are doing to make it possible is the accountability window. How do they render accountability to both things? One thing being, well, we are a public sector organization, the other thing being, yes, we are in markets, or we are a competition, or we have to be strong economically. So the accountability story is informing us about how hospitals cope. And the two levels, I insist, not only hospitals themselves, but also regulators, associations that are around the sector, regulating the sector, regulating quality, for instance, is a very important part of it, is regulating quality in the sector. They have to have both logics in mind, and the question is how they do it. Because you have this public mission accountability on the one hand, and something I have invented, I'm not alone with it, but it's not very, not used very widely, the notion of market accountability. It's a difficult notion because, the public administration guys said to me, well, you can't use it because market accountability is always about public things and would be market things. I think, yes, why not use the accountability framework by saying that, well, there is something like crazy growth over there, where accountability is rendered in terms of market success, or market values, or, balance sheet things, or something. And this is in the double sense. First of all, it can be part of rendering account to the public. So you're saying that we are proud to be cost efficient. But it can also be internally a driving force. So the people who are in the hospital or in the intermediary sphere, so this other level, are dealing with accountability issues. These people may start to think in terms of market success, and then the overall process of rendering account is being, you could say, what is it in English? Say influenced by, but it's not strong enough. Infused by is not strong enough. By these market workers or its market. And so we have the two accountabilities, and now we have to look at how people in the sector are dealing. That's what I wanted to do. I have to say, I forgot that I'm running a research project on this in Germany, which is 3 years. A couple of people go into both worlds, so in the role of the intermediary regulation, so regulators, agencies, etc., and in the role of 20 or so organizations, so looking at how people are dealing with achieving accountability. What can I tell you about Germany without being too boring and also without being, being realistic? You should first of all see that, which is important, I think from the Mexican point of view, but also from the Anglo-Saxon literature point of view, is that Germany is a country where hospitals are independent. Even those who are public sector run, belonging to the municipalities, most of them, not all, but most of them, they are, and these have always been like this, independent in economic sense. So they are independent agencies. So a minister couldn't ring a hospital and say that you have to do this and that. And thus, the mayor could have done this 20 years before, the mayor of a town could have done this, but also now they have reorganized themselves, so they have been like separating the political steering from the business and now the neighbor couldn't so easily call and say, I need that. So, and also there's two other types. One type has non-traditional, this is the non-profit organizations in the German sector. So non-profit organizations originally very much linked to the churches, which is no surprise historically, of course, in the world. In Germany, it has persisted as being an independent church thing. And more recently, which is very striking in Germany, is the rise of the for-profit sector. Germany is in Europe the country where the for-profit sector is climbing up most strongest by far. Yeah, you didn't know that, but it's true. It's stronger than in any other European country, as far as I know. And we have now, I think, 33 or something % of all unities are for-profit. And this has been less than half 10 years ago. But you have also these second level, these regular, I have mentioned that in the paper, I'm not very proud of it, but regulatory infrastructures. So these are running agencies, regulators, those are doing like quality standards, quality controls. We have, and also the funding, I go into this in a minute, but the funding is still being a little bit shaped by intermediary actors. It's, let's say, fine-tuned by intermediary actors. And these are, there's two strong intermediary actors which are here in the middle, the so-called sickness funds, which you can compare with your Mexican style ESS stuff, you know. And because they are independent, these are payroll contributions going into their pocket, and they are funding hospitals for providing care. There's of course a lot of difference to the Mexican field, but this is some superficially similar thing, and which is maybe different from Mexico. We have very strong provider organizations. Not only the hospitals themselves have a provider organization, which is a unified body, even though three different types of organizations, but they are unified nonetheless. The tradition is that the non-profit and public sector are dominant in this federation, and the private sector is still like a, like a junior partner or something, and has of course a difficult life still in this part of the sector. But also doctors are very strong. They have strong trade unions, and they have also their say in which is very hard to explain in a minute. I don't do that here today, but you can ask me now later. They do that in a quasi-public commission, which is doing a lot of regulations instead of the state. So many regulations in the German health sector are not being issued by the state, but by these intermediary organizations composed of providers and sickness funds, some experts, and also more recently, even though they have only like a voice in it, patient organizations. We have even patient organizations in these commissions which are regulating the sector. This has been referred to in the literature, and you may know this expression for Germany and some other countries, as corporatist, a corporatist regulation. The Federal Joint Committee is the most important intermediary organization. It's called like this. It's a co-institution. It's not state-run. There's no state representative there. It's only collective actors from the field. Regulated sector. Of course, they have to respect law. And the law has become more and more rigid over the last years, especially through the introduction of a very hardcore DRG funding. Do you know what is DRG funding? Well, that's of course only for those who are working in the field. DRG funding means that a hospital would get a fixed price for each disorder being treated. And whatever the length of stay of the patient, whatever the nature of the patient, whatever, if this person is a bit stupid or this person is like me, that was not a privilege. This person would get only one price, if like a stomach or like a cut arm, any operation would get one price. And this is international now. In most countries, even in Norway, you have, and even Norway is more soft on this, but not only this DRG formula, but also Norway understand all these stuff that we have. It's like a market thing, because you give each disorder gets a price, and then the hospital sells operations and gets a price. The price is highly regulated. It's even regulated in my intermediary sphere. So these collective actors can a little bit fine-tune the prices. You know, they do that. They negotiate a price. So there's also some development of price structures. But it is like a great market thing. And hospitals sell this. And also in Germany, you can go to any hospital you want if you have a disorder. You live in Berlin, I do. You can go to Munich. Why not? It's a nice town. After all, better is better, at least sometimes. You're entitled to go anywhere. So hospitals are, in a way, enterprises competing for patients on the basis of prices. You don't think that Germany is the only country in the world who has that. That's the majority of countries who are going into this direction, even those countries which have unified national health systems. In the UK, they are starting to embark on patient choice. In Norway, this was a major reform in the, I think, in the 90s or late 90s, giving choice to patients. Yeah. You know, so the state-run system, healthcare systems also go this direction. But Germany has had free choice for ages, but now they have also free prices and free competition. There is, of course, a lot of regulation, so I'm exaggerating a little bit. There's a lot of regulation on these price systems, on quality controls is there. And patients wouldn't, of course, move through the whole country. Of course, they will. But the overlooking in the mindset of the people, doctors or managers in the hospital, but even in those more politically accurate landscape here, they would know, yes, we have competition in the sector. Yeah, there's prices, there's markets, and the manager handbooks, they say hospital market. Like, as this was the market for, I don't know, sunglasses. Yeah. So just to give you a flavor, the corporatist character of the system persists to some extent, though. You can see that in the last line here, the conditions under which the market is being evolving, under which quality is being controlled, etc., are still being an object of negotiation between collective actors. So providers, the hospital federation, the doctors sometimes, doctors associations, and the sickness funds. So these crazy Mexican ESMS, I don't get it all today. How do you call it? Teams. Yeah, how many time I've left? So I started 15 minutes ago, I think, so 10 minutes. Maybe it's 15 minutes. That's about regulation. It's only showing what I said. Sorry, sometimes I'm quicker than my slides. We have had the Hospital Law 72, which in my day was the heyday of the classical rationale, the public sector, as I said, welfare state, professionalism, any patient at any time should be dealt like no price, nothing, just public mission. This was 72, and in 90s and 2000s, then the transition to this called sequential marketing, as I delineated a couple of minutes ago. You can also see there's now even new possibilities for market rational or additional possibilities for market rational to develop sickness funds, which are non-profit organizations in Germany. They are not for-profit, it's important, but they are also competitive. That's a difference. France, for instance, sickness funds do not compete, and I think it's the only country that doesn't know that sickness funds, even though being non-profit, have a clear public mission as well. So they are regulated by law very strongly, but they are competing for insurance, for members, you can say. You can have a choice if you're working with a company here in these nice buildings. You will go to, maybe you will have choice and go to a sickness fund where you have only your lights in it, because old and sick people you don't want to have with you. So you go to one of these more, advanced or seemingly, of course, and ironic, I think that feel the more advanced organizations, and then you would have, a sickness composed of your lives. It's as a tendency has developed like this in Germany, even though the conditions under which you are enrolled are very similar. But this is not so important for today. What is important for today is that sickness funds want or would like to be organizations that buy services on behalf of their enrollees. This is an idea which has come up, I think, in Mexico. A couple of I think I read, I don't know where, some years ago as well, and it's a very US-oriented model. You have these HMO organizations buying services on behalf of groups of insurers. It's not still well developed in Germany. It has started for some integrated care projects, but they always want to do it. And it's every second year they find a number of deputies, and not necessarily from the right-wing parties, including from the Social Democrats, defending their cause. It's like, now in this law we will extend our possibilities to buy services. It's not the same logic like the DRG price logic. It's more the logic of packages being bought. Of course, the idea of the sickness funds is to, make money, because they know that if they have a hospital on the contract, the hospital would be interested in having a safe flow of patients for a while. So the hospital would give a discount. Well, this is not, the detail is not as important as the whole story behind it. The whole story behind it, we have this second institutional logic in the German sector. In various respects, we have the two logics. The law and public sector agents, and even those in the sickness funds. I have done some projects about sickness funds over the last years. So their logic is still a hybrid logic. They also would say, yes, of course, the public mission is undeniable. We wouldn't abandon the public mission of the hospital or the sector. Everyone has to be cared for. No one should be left on the street, and also the poor should be, etc. So this logic is still there, but you have the other logic as well. So we are now in the project, we are looking at how this is being processed by the actors at the two levels, of the level of organizations and the level of the intermediary infrastructure. And so far, it's very difficult to get information on that. There's no, little evidence on how hospitals are dealing. Especially, these are also anecdotal evidence, and you don't know exactly. So, and it's also difficult to find out because, as you said, there's very much a secret also in this law. But we know now that there are some avenues through which the pressers or the organizations themselves would deal with it, and I have named them here. You can see it's, I don't want to read it, but you can see that it's the attempt to do the same two things at one time. For instance, the first one is, of course, leave everything as it is, but intensify the input of workers. This is a very famous recipe. Doctors and nurses have long hours, are working harder, and we have now, there is some evidence that there is a stress work, burnout, etc. It's been going up. And this is named by authors like organizational citizenship, because they have an ethos, yeah, and doctors and nurses, they would even exploit themselves a little bit more. And this is something which happens, and there's also some evidence. This is a more simple mechanism, but it's there. But also more subtle things. There is one in qualitative studies that has shown that doctors are now really arranging their attentions. If there's a simple case, he would or she would maybe think that, we don't have to do it twice. It's a simple thing. The probability of error or something is low. I will devote my time to the complex cases now. So there is something like this. And of course, the impact in terms of quality is difficult to measure. But also hospitals as organizations, this is very Italian, reorganize themselves. Many of them want to specialize now in specialties. They would close some departments and they would only deal with those departments, those disorders, where they have a big physician or big names, and which is of course has an impact on which services are available in a given region, especially in the non-urban, not the say convertidos, so in these countryside, yeah, countryside area. More generally, we don't know exactly what is happening. Well, we won't find it out, by the way, by our project, by our design. But I think there is like a toleration of less quality now. And this is being felt by, for instance, discharge policy. So we know that the pressure of the price system is that patients are being discharged very early. They are sent to other doctors, they are sent to old people living in homes, they are sent home simply, and once there is someone at home, then they will be sent, because there is a husband at home, a daughter or something. So this is, I think, very clear, and there's also data on that. And also the typical behavior of market organizations looking for new money by, for instance, by paying. Yes, this is occurring. Hospitals have been found to pay physicians for sending patients. It's illegal in Germany, but it's evident. Hospitals have started to pay a physician to send a patient. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So a patient from from an outpatient doctor, from a district doctor, because these are referring patients to hospitals, and so there's also books written by colleagues. I don't know whether these are colleagues I like, but they are colleagues like how you do it best, marketing with physicians, and this is being sold to hospitals. So there is something happening at this level. We have not so far found on the other side of the story. The other side is still there. How there's also resistance to it. How this also is being like called into question by other actors in the hospital, or how they try to, how something is being tried but then abandoned later on. So I have only assembled a couple of developments which point to how the market orientation is being, the market accountability is being processed. And I have not looked so far at how the public mission comes back into this. Yeah, now this is something to have done. I have done that on the other level, or we have done that on the other level a little bit more, the level of the infrastructure, of this intermediate infrastructure. We can see that there is a lot of feeling, I think, among the actors that there is a very high pressure on hospitals, and this may also be harmful. So they have all the years now, like 20 years, looking for like temporary compromises to find a way to make it not too cruel. For instance, they have then in the DRG price system, they have had some rules of transition where DRG prices didn't apply. Or they have, which is very complicated to explain, but they have given some hospitals some more time or a leeway, or some, they have to take the pressure out. This is possible in Germany because we have a negotiated system. So if this one would negotiate with the hospital would show, if you go if it goes like this, if it goes on like this, we will have to close next year. Then the citizen is like, I give you some more time, and so there is something like this. So, that's what I mean by flexible contracts. Here is the second point. But you can also see that there's also conflict in the system. For instance, hospitals, together with doctors, together with trade unions, together with some politicians, have several times built alliances, political alliances, and they have even organized the biggest mass demonstration German hospital has ever seen, to get additional money in the sector, because because it became clear that the system was strangulating, said in English world. You know what I mean? The number of hospitals, and the statistics say that 1 out of 3 hospitals is in trouble, so it's not the bottom line is not being reached. And so you have also this political, really that's political play, political conflicts, and where actors ally and exert pressure to manage and try to convince those actors in the middle and the near sphere. Also, of course, they try to convince government to give additional money in it. But the message so far, and I will stop before my conclusions with this message, is that at this level you can see that there is more like a nervous coping behavior with these two logics, where two logics are being failed, and where if one logic is coming too strong, the actors work hard to find a compromise to tame it, in a sense. Yeah? And in this sense, you have this double accountability structure. You can see that especially, and my feeling is that you will see it after all more at the intermediate level than at the local level, that the public mission accountability and the market accountability are confronting each other, and then the actors do like a trial and error, looking for mitigating measures, just to solve the problem for this year, and next year they will come together again, and then this will go on like this. So it's like a nervous enterprise all the time. So everything's been nervous, and there's no clear regulation. The two logics do not, one of them cannot win, because if one would win, if one won, then the other one, would make life hard for either politicians or hospitals. Oh well, I promised you to go on to the next thing. Well, that's something I forgot, but I'll make it very brief. What I found about Mexico is that, first of all, it is different from Germany. It's more fragmented, much more fragmented system than the German system, because you have these 3 words of poor people health sector, the ins kind of health sector, and the very rich health sector. And in the private sector, you have also private provision for the very poor. So we have at least one would say this is more fragmented than the German. I could say more, but I don't. It's good that I don't need to say more now, because I could tell you stupid things. So I go Greek. First, and the accountability, my feeling is, and that's a discussion point maybe, it's at least in the field of healthcare, Mexico is still in the pre-NPN configuration, even though there seem to be some attempts, and there have been some attempts to change, but that didn't work out so much, as I learned. Strong state control, as I see. Maybe the market accountability comes in through another door, because the out-of-pocket payment is so important in some parts of the sector. So this gives you a market. But it's not the same market as the organized market like in Germany. My feeling from reading more recent development was there's some European trends, some trends of Europeanization in the Mexican system. Because with Seguro Popular there is more attempts to bring in contracts, for instance, in the system, contracts that may be provisions that provisions may be bought from INS, so provisions for Seguro Popular people may be bought from INS organizations, which would be a little like crazy markets or contractualism thing. Of course, the incremental inclusion of the informal underclass people into Seguro Popular is the Europeanization movement. You can refer to this. Some options for managed care, some public-private partnerships, which is also a very European thing, but I don't know whether you are familiar with public-private partnerships? No? Yes, probably you are. So what I can see from I'm very brief, I know, and very superficial here. I think the institutional logics would not be as clearly positioned in the Mexican field, because the marketing is very diffused and not regulated and not organized. And the other one is officially very strong, the public mission thing, but in reality, because resources are not sufficient, because actors do not comply with the law, and etc. So in reality, the institutional logic, the welfare, medical profession logic is not developed as consistently, and thus there is also probably an accountability regime Mexican style, which is probably very different, because on the one hand it's very much public mission centered, more probably than now in Germany, but because there is so much informal life in the sector, it's being like, not crowded out, but being precarious and not being followed so much. That was a bit short, but maybe it's better because I'm not a specialist in Mexico. So my conclusions, after all, I think a German case, but also other cases, and also in other sectors, you can see a new accountability regime taking place, where the old package, which has also be a package, it's not a single thing, but more kind of consistent package, professional, bureaucratic, social, political, is becoming unbundled and challenged by what I refer to as market accountability. And so far, I cannot tell you a lot about the way the coping process is working, but my feeling is it's more like a trial and error, permanent mitigation thing, that tensions that emerge from these two logics and these two accountabilities are being dealt with. But this gives an overall system, that's my last sentence, a permanent, provides permanent stress and nervous negotiation or nervous coping processes, and no clear, sound orientation. And that makes a difference to the past, I think, because at least in Europe, we had, at least as an ideology, we had a more consistent orientation for developing the health sector, and I'm afraid this has been lost. Thanks for your attention. I was a bit longer than I wanted to be. I hope I was a bit slower than usually, by intention. And I hope there's some stuff for debate. As you like. If you can put it in Spanish, and it should be a bit despacio y poco.
Well, I will write one comment in English.
Yeah, of course.
Well, first, thanks a lot for your presentation, but I found it quite interesting. And when you were talking about the logic of the hospital or the health in Germany, I was thinking if there is no similar processes in other services, like water or education, what is the logic of? So we can learn inside Germany what is happening, in management processes, because I think it's the same logic, no? Like a work, like a long tradition of welfare, and now the market trying to be there. So maybe there's a good research strategy just to see what is happening in other sectors, because I don't know, it's like compare.
Yes. I can only say yes. I've worked on I'm working on other sectors. Of course, if you go into details, then some differences come up. But once you are at the more general level, the tension between logics the coping problem, the inconsistency, you can also almost say the postmodern character of understanding public services, because everything goes and nothing is possible. You could find that in many fields, but I think one, and that's not the only thing I say to this story, because otherwise it's too long to go into education. One major difference may, or one possible difference may reside in sectors where it's only about what is it? So water, energy, not facilities, what is it? Utilities, so these kind of utilities, on the one hand, and human processing organizations, I think there could be a difference. Human processing is in education, in social services, in health, but also in other things, maybe also in public services to the citizen, where there's a lot of communication, there's a lot of people processing. Water, trains, public transport, but of course also public transport you have. And of course comparisons would be very rich, exactly because it's one of the same and not the same.
I just want to call my attention to the idea of how it's changing in Mexico, specifically with the introduction of Seguridad Social, which in practice is more about including people who are educated, because one of the main critics is that we don't have enough infrastructures or enough resources, not to mention quality, but only the service itself is very limited compared to the demand of people really good. And for some critics, this idea of Seguridad Social is more a movement towards a more American type of health service provision, where you have this age amounts, where even though you have public resource invested in the providers of others, and in Mexico you have this huge public provider, they need but we also have, as I mentioned, quite a big market sector, fully regulated by the International. It caught my attention when some people talk about in Mexico, when they talk about the European style, it's more about the idea of providing health as a right, a social right. Even though nowadays, and we know that since the 90s, there is this change towards a new public management perspective, because as you mentioned, this idea of health as a universal right still prevails. So for me, I'm just curious why you call the Europeanization of the Mexican sector. At the same time, that for some Mexican critics, they may say it's not Europeanization but Americanization. So I'm just curious about.
Well, but with Obama, everything changes.
Exactly, but maybe because now Europe, as you mentioned, they have this more new public management approach.
Exactly.
But still, it's not, even though it's in new public management, by no means it's the same like in America, because they always, this idea of providing health as a social right has never been discussed in Europe. So that I'm just curious about how you call this.
No, the idea was to say that when I say Europeanization, I refer to the more recent double line or double bottom line approach, or I said post-modern approach in Europe, which is having both at the same time. A market and making money and all this on one hand, and the social right on the other hand. And this is why I thought the Mexican story about Seguridad Social is similar. Because the idea was and that was, of course, the official idea was to improve and to generalize and to rationalize also, because you can correct me, of course, but I know that officially they also said, in introducing it, that they wanted people to go no longer to the private dealer, to the private on the streets, a small, cabinet, more very much controlled by the state, but also not regulated, but to regulated organizations. And that's why they wanted to enroll people in Seguridad. That was what I read. It's probably the ideology, or probably it's part of the story, but exactly the double nature of Seguridad. That's what I find interesting, because it's come up with two things at one time, and it's come with the double logic of the two institutional logics. You can see two applicabilities. The one applicability is, yes, there is a modern pressure on Mexican to be modern. That means that people should have access to care. At the same time, to be modern, we have to apply, to have markets, and we have to, this is something we can use to develop the market economy. And both at the same time. So that's why I said Europeanization. Not in the sense of old Europe, because old Europe, so 20th century Europe was, of course, social right and public regulation, and that was dominant. But new Europe.
You are applying to that.
Yeah. But my argument, I haven't, well, that's what I developed later probably, but my argument is that once you have the two logics at the same time, the battle is not being lost or decided. You understand what I mean? The battle, so I'm in social societal battle around it. So I know that Obrador has lost in the election, but what about if he had won? What have you done? He would have had the possibility to draw on one side of the story more than on the other, for instance. So we are now in the state, and that also touches upon other sectors, where the water scene, for instance. I know that water privatization has gone much farther in the developing countries than in Europe, and also it's more radical. But there's still some governments in Latin America saying that was not a good way, and there's still the second world, still the second accountability frame is still there. That's what I mean by nervous play, nervous compromise, and we are in a situation where things are not clear. And in Mexico, I find this country where the most diffused country that we come across so far. Diffused in the sense of nothing is clear. In the sense of what is really being the template for a future. Well, that's another point. Let's discuss later.
And what was the role of the federal German government respect the syndicates, medical syndicates, to promote they change their mind about to adopt new models of quality, of mission, public service, and if this project, how was problematic to incorporate this model, this change of mind in the public mission?
A very difficult question, because on the one hand, at face value, you would, of course, if you read German newspapers and also work from colleagues from political science, of course, they would say that everything is about the federal state. The federal state has reorganized the whole world system, and he wanted to have these new logics, and that's it. As I have been studying for many years the world of the thickness funds, which are a very complex universe in which 3 or 4 mindsets are linked or connected. Employers are there. They are stakeholders of most thickness funds. Trade unions, but it's not everything. There's also a lot of people like specialists which have a background in social sciences or in medical sciences, so they are come from this. There's also some other influences in these thickness funds. And the ideas of making the German model develop towards these two logics was very early developed in the circles of these organizations. And governments were more drawing on this work rather than imposing their own thing. And this is something I learned. So it doesn't come from the federal government so much, especially because Germany is a corporate country where this the expertise lies not with the state so much, but with intermediary bodies. But of course, very important to see the compromise. For instance, employers have been gone stronger and stronger in Germany over the last years as a political force. As everywhere in the world, I have to say. And they, of course, have then tried to find a compromise with the other forces. And the German case is very clear about this compromise is this, postmodern configuration, where you have on the one hand a more neoliberal approach to all of this, but on the other hand, of course, the language is still all Europe. But this is not being played out in government so much. It's played out in society. In intermediary bodies, strong bodies, and you have the same in the energy sector. Energy sector is very interesting in a completely different story. That's nuclear power. Germany is the only country in the world that has decided to leave nuclear power. And you can study how different currents in these sometimes these organizations, these providers are quasi-public organizations with several stakeholders. And again, it's not so much the state. It's in these other circuits, Maybe also as I'm a sociologist, I'm reluctant to see the state as a driving force in society. The state is very often can be, of course, an independent force. And the power things are very important, I know. But many other things come from elsewhere. That's a question I have for you, why, in your opinion, a very neoconservative government how he was called, the Mexican president of the early 90s, who was like neoliberal, yes, 1995, 1998, how this kind of government, wasn't that the beginning of Seguridad Popular? Fox, I was looking for Fox, yeah. Fox was Seguridad. Why the hell this government went into this Seguridad Popular thing?
That's why for your question is for me, because critics inside Mexico consider to be more a conservative initiative than a left initiative, whereas you consider more a left-sided initiative. And why the Mexicans consider more right-wing initiative is because it's not based on the idea of including people in the already existing healthcare providers, which is INS and ISTE. But the idea was for some critics in paper to provide healthcare or access to the healthcare, but without being like a right. It's not a by law. Because we don't have because it's not like if you are part of the INS or ISTE, by law you are covered by it. It's a right which is subject to laboral status. Whereas in Seguridad Popular you can opt for that or not.
I know, yeah.
And because of that, the provider even could be, I don't know now, but in theory could be even private providers, not only the public ones. So that's why some people say it's more than American style initiative.
Why at all? I mean, maybe it was not to have a unified system, that I understand easily, but why at all doing something about it? You can leave it as it is. Why investing in it? I mean, it is an investment. It has to be invested. There was money to do this. So, and it's not so much like left and right. It's also because where come forces? Where the social ideas come from, and what is the role of government? What is the role of society? And maybe also international organizations. Maybe also there is.
Maybe I think there are different kinds of forces. Or one of them is the international organization.
Okay.
So they started with some kind of pilot program, in a sense, and this is the base of the program. And the other one is the some kind of pressure to have a universal product. And how to include people that is not that does not have a formal job. A lot of informal jobs, how they can study what they see, I think it seems more welcome in the US because Cerro Popular is like private insurance made by the sector. And they don't cover all the industry. Just like a private insurance.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a political. I mean, of course, you could say, well, a true left-wing reform would, of course, well, I'm a little bit provocative now, would, of course, bring the paradox. But, I mean, if you take some distance from this, then you would, of course, if you want to understand what's happening in a society, you should, from my point of view, leave some space for understanding these contradictions, you know, in the process. And I mean, it's of course, if in the 90s, I mean, which was internationally the heyday of neoliberalism. I mean, more than today, we would say. During this time, this innovation has a lot of snags, a lot of you know, like that's easily to understand. And if it's from a Fox government, it's the more you will understand that. But nonetheless, I mean, I was very interested to see, or I'm still very interested to see islands in the sea where things are more complicated than the sea. That's not a good picture, but you know what I mean. And the good one for me is complicated issue. And your explication I can follow easily to say that it's of course No, français raffiné. A tricky enterprise. Like you respond to some tensions, World Bank, and you say, well, we have what Mexico wants to progress in the world and what's a good social. Maybe we put a more American institution in it, and then we have, in a sense, you know, circumvented this. Yes, I agree that it's probably logic, but obviously they had to go this way instead of going like post-Pinochet Chile, for instance. Post-Pinochet Chile, for instance, they didn't care at all about this. They have just put the neural things and that was it. So that's why I asked you, not because I agree fully with you that I was not a fully-fledged, you know, progressive, old European style. I agree.
Well, let's talk about the Chile and American consciousness. Not so radical.
Yeah, not so radical.
But still, it's not the universal universalism.
Yeah.
And also now they have been changing because they are going to have some funds not by the family, but by the affiliated individual person.
More recently. Yeah, but from the social democracy.
Yes, and they become more individualized and collectivist and the other. And also the new government, they think they are better and happy with
the next government?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so because some of the team of the director says that the government has some incentives to
informality, which is the counter movement to what has been said as.
In other places, I have some questions. I think what I found interesting is that we say that children in Mexico or federal states, Mexico has been some restrictions to government because federal states have been informed to the states and they cannot control very well the states and generally, how can we
Well, there's two answers to the question. The first one is
for the bulk of the funding and the bulk of the regulation, face value, the Länder, which are the federal states, Länder, regions, would not have much influence. But this is only at face value, because there is 3 or 4 fields where they do have influence. Not so much in the Mexican way. Mexican way is that I learned that the federal state gives money to the state and negotiates in the sort of contracts now. There's contracts, which is also like Europeanization as an instrument, government instrument, not so much in line with what I was telling you, but as a government instrument, it's the Europe style government. More, I don't know, well, maybe also Anglo-Saxon Europe. But more in terms of that lenders still lenders have the responsibility of ensuring provision by law. It's not the national state of the lender. If there's a problem, an urgency or a fire in an hospital or something, the lender has to do something, not the national state. The lender are also very strong players in, where you can see, you can't tease them so much, but all of a sudden you see them as important players in the political struggle I was referring to. For instance, in this protest movement against the underfunding of the hospital sector at the end of the 2000s, most lenders were implicitly joining the alliance against the national government. And this was very, very, that is confusing the electorate, so to speak, because of course there are some ministers who usually are member of a party of the government, but then say that no, we are people's government. So that's the second point. Third point, investment funding for hospitals lies with the lender. That's a bit strange, but so if a new hospital is to be built or new machines are to be bought or something, the lender will come on, not the national state. This gives them power, but they have not so much, over the last years, they have not so much fulfilled this duty. They have started to diminish their funding, and this also has put them in a difficult position. So it's not like in Mexico, but the lender do play a role in the hospital sector and also in education. Education is very much decentralized. So it's about the same, that's also accountability thing, of course, I know. For me, it's very much within the state. And I would like to go also beyond the state, not only the state, but beyond the state, looking at accountability outside the state. But it's an issue. Contracts are existing at various levels. At a local level, each hospital will pass a contract with a big sickness fund. The sickness fund would be representative of a class of sickness funds, and they would negotiate a budget. But the terms under which the budget is being negotiated is dependent on contracts found at the intermediate level. The intermediate level is a lot of quality norms, the PRG price schemes being fine-tuned. Well, there's also many other things like the qualification for doctors and all these things. This is being very much by contracts agreements. And the government, that's the government, the national government, there's only some governments, rough governments matter. They do exist about some general norms to be respected, but most contracts are not between national state. There's also another thing, like if a hospital wants to start service, they would have contact with the land. But it's only at the beginning. Then this is being supposed to persist. The only risk is if the hospital is really
really doing a very strong mistake or being like harming people, or then the land could withdraw the authorization from the hospital. But this contract is, once it has been passed, it's true. But we have not the contract business like into health in Mexico. There's also many other contracts, but I don't want to go into too many. It's it's very. I know I'm in a network of European researchers and hospitals. This is a EU-funded network, and I have problems in, well, the German case is not very present because all these colleagues say it's impossible to understand Germany, the German system. They come from UK or the North, or they say, well, we have a very clear-cut system. In France, we have, I'm not so sure that they have a clear-cut system, but it's maybe a bit clearer than Germany, but Germany is very complicated. Because we have multi-level governance, you have several contracts, you have the two logic though. I think the two logic though, you will find them everywhere. In the UK as well. Yeah, it's true, Well, that's inbuilt into the NPM gender. That's true. ¿Preguntas en español? ¿No?
Bueno, pues muchas gracias. Seguramente cuando vamos a conocer el material y la discusión, el sendero continúa el día de mañana en la UAM. Muchas gracias.
Gracias por su invitación y su atención. Y si están interesados para estas cosas, hay un documento. Algunas páginas como es visible, incluso sobre mi perspectiva sobre México, hay 2 o 3 páginas. Es probablemente no serioso, pero sería muy contento si hay comentarios por email. Quiero mucho de aprofundir la investigación sobre el caso mexicano. Y parece que voy a regresar en 2 meses para una estancia de 3 meses, entonces hay oportunidades de disfrutar. Y incluso sobre otras cosas preguntarme cuestiones sobre cosas
Antes, una foto, ¿se pueden poner aquí una foto?
Está así porque no somos muchos.
¿Pueden tomar un?
Sí, claro.
¿Dónde? Allá.
Okay.
Podríamos ir en la calle, estamos en cabo, vamos seguro.
Photoshop.
Sí, vamos a hacer taller como de los
Sí, ¿verdad?
Es un poco de lugar para que
¿De dónde? ¿De dónde? ¿Sí? No, no, no.
¿Dónde te encuentras?